Okay, so for my biology final, I expanded on Denise Herzing, and I incorporated Jane Goodall for my two influential figures on animal to human behavior. I'm going to start talking about Jane Goodall since I gave a lot of information in my first presentation. So these are three pictures that I chose to incorporate into my final presentation. These were all taken during these two were actually taken during her research, and this is when she went back to Taiwan to visit the chimps that she had worked with, and they recognized her, and they they let the people work in their area and stuff like that, and it became really influential because most chimpanzees wouldn't let the human into their habitat or anything like that. And I think that kind of goes into evolution, what we talked about in class, and how more animals are letting people into their lives. Like on the final test we just took, the wild cats and the house cats, how the house cats came from the wild cats and things like that. So the two breakthroughs I had for Jane Goodall was, one day Jane was working in her field with the chimps, and she noticed two chimps making tools for access to their food. Previous scientists had thought that humans were the only mammals capable of making tools for their own benefit. The tool was composed of a twig, and chimps altered it to use as a fishing pole for casting to get fish, and her discovery made scientists redefine the meaning of what man really was. And then the other important thing that she found out by doing her research was her and her colleagues have also witnessed how aggressive chimps can be. Chimps are divided into packs and tribes and have been known to attack other tribes, even if they're just neighbors to one another. So even if they interact, if something bad happens in the chimps, then they'll just start fighting about it. And during the study, she witnessed a war between the chimps, and one tribe was eventually wiped out completely, and this was the first record of long-term warfare between non-humanistic primates. So those were two of my facts. My next was Denise Herzing. These are more detailed pictures of what I had talked about a few weeks ago. This is the keyboard that's used underwater. This is the camera and the microphone that's used underwater as well when they're trying to figure out the different squeaks and squawks that the dolphins make. And that's the camera and microphone being used. That's a scarf in one of the workers' hands, and they're trying to get the dolphins to recognize the squeak with the scarf and get them to understand what they're doing. Okay, so one of the breakthroughs that Denise made was during that time she observed their way of life and how they interact with each other. She found out the dolphin's language is a true language that can be spoken among the species, and each high-pitched squeak means something different from the other. By monitoring this, Jane was able to take part in this language and create her words of her own for the dolphins to respond to. Like the scarf had its own squeak that the dolphins didn't know from like their own language, so it was almost like a new word into the dolphins' language. And for us to be able to incorporate a word in a different mammal species was a huge breakthrough moment, because obviously we don't know what they're saying and they don't know what we're saying all the time. For things that I see down the road, so after studying just these two scientists, I realized that we're actually getting really close to being able to interact with animals more and more. The fact that our technology is improving so much and so fast, I think it will lead to even more breakthroughs, like the fact that we can have underwater tools, cameras, and speakers and stuff like that. I mean, obviously Jane Goodall couldn't have that in her work to work with the chimpanzees, and who knows, she could have found out even more. I also think that it would be an unreal experience to be part of it, and I hope that the research continues to be found by studying other mammals and other animal species. I also think that working with these two mammals since they're so close to how we are as humans with the dolphin's brain and just the chimpanzee's not only brain but how they function with their body and how their brain puts things together, I think they were two really good animals to start off with and build off with. So I think that also evolution is going to have a huge impact in like whatever else happens in the future with other animals. Like I said earlier, the differences that could come about could be really life-changing. So that's it.